Welcome back to Ghana Songs TV. This one's a little different from our usual show. I'm Bright.
I'm Amara.
And I'm Chine. Today we're taking some time to remember a few Nigerian musicians the industry lost this year. Not to dwell on it, but because these are people whose music mattered and their stories deserve more than a headline that scrolled past in a day.
Let's start with Destiny Boy. Real name Afeez Adeshina. He was an Afrofuji artist, only 22 years old, and he built a real following online with that fast melodic style Afrofuji is known for. He passed away in January. His family said he'd been dealing with a long-term health issue that caused seizures, and they'd tried both medical and traditional treatment for it. An autopsy later found dangerous levels of certain substances in his system, and police opened an investigation into the circumstances. 22 is no age to go. Amara, what stood out to you about him?
What got me is how fast he'd risen. Afrofuji isn't always the genre that gets the mainstream spotlight, but Destiny Boy had genuinely broken through with it. Young fans, real streams, real momentum. And that's part of why this hit's different, because we're not talking about someone at the end of a long career. We're talking about someone who was just getting started. Chineye, tell them about Nanyah.
Ifunanya Nwangene. A lot of people knew her as Nanyah, and some will remember her from The Voice Nigeria. She was 26. She passed away at the end of January after being bitten by a snake while she was asleep at home in Abuja. What made it worse is that she reportedly went to a nearby clinic first, and they didn't have the anti-venom she needed. That detail alone says a lot about the gaps in emergency care that still exist, even for someone whose face people recognize from national television. She had a real singing career ahead of her, and it's just heartbreaking that something so preventable is what took her.
That's the part that stays with you. It wasn't inevitable. It was a system failing her at the moment she needed it most.
Exactly. And then in February, there was Matthew Ogundele, a gospel artist. He and 3 others, including a fellow performer and a blogger who covered their scene, were found dead inside a music studio in Adjan, Lagos. They'd stayed over after performing at a birthday praise event that ran late and were found unresponsive the next day. Police said there was no sign of violence on the bodies, and the investigation into exactly what happened in that studio is still something people in the gospel music community are asking hard questions about.
4 people in one room, gone overnight. That's the kind of story that shakes an entire community, not just the fans of one artist. And it's a reminder that these aren't just names in a headline. These were people, with families, with a whole crew depending on them.
And then we lost someone from a completely different generation, Professor Johnson Adjan, known to Urhobo music lovers as Ogburine. He was 82 and his career spanned more than 50 years. He wasn't chasing Afrobeats trends, he was a custodian of Urhobo culture. His songs carried history, proverbs, values, the kind of music that teaches a people who they are. He'd been dealing with stroke-related complications for a while and passed away in June. Delta State's governor and people across the Niger Delta came out to mourn him.
That's a legacy in the truest sense. 50 years of preserving a culture through music. Not everyone gets that kind of send-off, and honestly, he earned every bit of it.
So that's 4 very different stories. A rising Afrofuji star at 22, a young singer with a national platform, a gospel artist whose death is still raising questions, and a cultural icon who spent half a century keeping his people's history alive through song. Different genres, different generations, but all part of the same music community.
If any of these artists' music meant something to you, that's worth sharing in the comments. Their families and their fans read them.
And if you want us to keep doing more of this, honoring the people behind the music, not just the headlines? Let us know. Subscribe to Ghana Songs TV for more on Ghanaian, Nigerian, and South African music.
This is Ghana Songs TV. We'll see you in the next one.